make our problems better. I feel like that would just somehow make everything worse.
Maybe if I move it a little lower.
Not somehow. It would definitely make everything worse. Well, yeah, you could move it lower. We have noticed that before, but we'll let it work out its New Year kinks here. Make sure we're going live everywhere. Here we go. All right, I see people.
Well, we're back. First unauthorized caucus.
First unauthorized caucus
of 2024.
2024. Who knew? Who knew we would get this far? The Mayans said just 12 short years ago we were all, gone, but didn't happen. Didn't happen. Here we are. So welcome and thank you for being with us. It is Thursday. It is Caucus Day, and we're glad to be back on the wagon. We had a couple of those kind of oddball in between the holidays, topics where there wasn't really news, and then all of a sudden there was, and it was,
Right.
But thank you for bearing with us and being with us for a couple of fun weeks of just frivolity. But we're back at it, and a lot has happened. So we've got a lot to talk about today. But before we do, and I see all the numbers climbing in here, I will say, first of all, go to phyllisschlafly.com, sign up for the email list, and then you won't miss the notifications for this, and you won't miss the resource email after the fact. You don't want to miss it, especially today. We both have a lot of links that are going to be coming along, things that you'll want to read, resources, numbers, data, at least on my end, that I think you're going to want to see. I'm going to be quoting some. So make sure you go sign up for the email, and then wherever you are, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Send this to a friend during the lunch hour here. Let them know you're watching and that you want them to be a part of the conversation. But we have got a lot to talk about. I will say we're not talking today on Instagram. I know I promised that last week. We were trying, but Instagram has just finally opened up live streaming to third-party softwares. So we're playing with it, but they're not being very helpful. So I tried and it didn't work a couple times. We're going to hold off on it because otherwise you would be looking at this on your phone on Instagram, because they tell me I can do this, and then they say, yeah, you can do that, but then it's going to crop it to here. So it's,
and then we'd both have to like lean in, kind of put our heads over.
Wait, hold on. There's our thumbnail. Okay. We would definitely have to do something funky. So we'll get there, but we are streaming across all the platforms, and wherever you are, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. And we're going to dive into the conversation here. What are we here to talk about?
We're here to talk about
Chris Christie.
Oh,
although Chris Christie did break the RNC debate pledge. Did you see that?
Did he?
On MSNBC yesterday, someone asked him point blank, if it's Trump, Biden in the fall, who you voting for Trump? And he said, no. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure you actually had to sign a document. So I wonder if that's going to come back around. Are there any more Republican debates?
He got mad at Trump for doing the same thing back in 2016.
Right? That's the first thing that I thought of was, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You've done this before, Bubbo. This is how this works. Are there any more GOP debates? Or are we done with those? I think that didn't we have the last one?
I hope we're done.
I hope we're done.
Yeah.
I don't know. That was not what we came to talk about. Nor did we come to talk about Senator Kennedy, who I love. That man is wonderful. His latest line that Americans don't trust Joe Biden to open a can of Pringles. That was also a quote from yesterday. I didn't tell you what, cable news is entertaining sometimes, as bad as I think it is for America. But that's not what we're here to talk about. What we are here to talk about today is
diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how we are yelling at trans, disabled, BIPOC, refugee, non-binary, femboy. I think I got all that right.
Can it be a femboy if it's a non-binary?
I don't know.
You said boy. You don't even know how this works.
I don't know.
Frankly, neither do they.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here to talk about. Yeah, you may have noticed DEI is in the news. We're down two Ivy League presidents. UPenn, Liz McGill, she resigned on December 12th, conspicuously 7 days after she testified before Congress. She resigned and lost a $100,000 donation. And then Tuesday, 2 days ago, President Gay resigned from Harvard. We'll hold our commentary to that. But President Gay resigned from Harvard, and that was not just the DEI realm. She got into a whole mess of plagiarism, which we'll get into here. But I mean, what it does is this really speaks, I think, for itself, the whole system. Like, we are watching the DEI system, the affirmative action system, at work, crumbling in upon itself. And then I think we're putting all the pieces together. And we could go off into a giant long thing, I'm sure, about problems with education in America.
Yeah.
And it's much greater than just this one thing. But the field that we're in today is how these DEI policies are affecting American higher education. And then I think the real discussion is, what's that actually do? Is this a Bud Light moment where people actually seize on the opportunity to do something and demand change, or does it just kind of rear its ugly head and go away? That's, I think, the real ultimate question.
Right.
We can dive into
DEI
it. So.
is also, on the back burner in the corporate world too, and the business world, because it simply doesn't work out on the profit and loss sheet. It's you're shoveling all these expenses towards checking these identity boxes, and it's getting to the point, I think, where the boosts you get from your increased BlackRock ESG score is not making up for the losses in productivity you're having from hiring not based on merit, not based on performance, not based on anything like that, but only on what identity boxes they check. That's clearly not working out. That's not good. That doesn't make money. And in the long run, businesses might care about ideology, but if it's money, they're not going to work. It's different with universities because they have donors. It's not directly, we produce a product, consumer demand type of thing. And plus they have tax benefits from the government. They have special privileges. So it's a different thing, which means that the assault on university for these types of things does have to be ideological and political, such as in the cases of the congressional hearings and what's the guy's name? Christopher Rufo. Yeah, Rufo. In the acts that he's been doing at President Gay, that it really exposed the depth of her corruption.
Right.
Not necessarily corruption, but plagiarism, academic dishonesty, which is just hilarious. And we both got a few links about this, but this is something Ed talked about the other day, the great Ed Martin. But I think it's important to talk about here the AP News article about how calling out plagiarism is the right's new tool of racism. And it's like you kind of think of what the counterfactual of that is it like, do other races have to plagiarize? Like, I don't think so. That's not a requirement we're putting on anybody, but that's kind of the implication of this. Going after plagiarism is racist because minorities plagiarize. I don't know the minorities who plagiarize. It seems to just be President Gay, and if there are others, regardless of race, they plagiarized. When I was in school, you plagiarize, you get a big fat 0 in that class. You fail the class, you have to retake it. That's one of the cardinal sins of academic dishonesty.
Well, and I think because we can go through the line of what happened, how we got here, and how this is affected. I actually have a few stats I want to share on administrators versus faculty across college campuses, universities in America. But this is really kind of the takeaway on this is the takeaway for 2024 is how the left responds to what we say and how we respond to what the left says. Like what are the battlegrounds and the arguments that are being drawn here? Because the reality is we have a vocal minority for truth and, objective reality and, I should say objective morality and logical reality and all of these, biology itself. And then we have the vocal minority for insanity. And quite frankly, there really is this big wishy-washy section in the middle that some of them float a little bit more conservative or a little bit more liberal, but they don't really fall into the leftist or the right-wing, camps firmly. Talking to those people, and first of all, getting them out of their apathy, just being glued to their, Netflix and different things on their smartphone, getting them off of their screen and into the real world to understand what's happening, and then going involved into an issue. This is really interesting because at this point, we say, you can't plagiarize, that's wrong. You can't plagiarize and be the head of a major university. How could you do that? And I think most people would agree with that. But then, of course, here comes the left saying, well, you're just using this as a weapon. You're just using this as a weapon to get rid of people because you're racist. It's really kind of, at this point, I think we see what the playbook is. Anything that we say that has any sort of objective standard, a black and white, right and wrong, is going to be attacked as fill in the blank. My question is that ridiculous enough for the American public, the wishy middle out there, to actually look at it and go, no, you guys are crazy lefties. I'm out. Like, I'm with these people. Or do they think that we're equally crazy, or do they not really care? My question is, stuff like this, I see that, and everyone I know looked at the AP article and was like, are you kidding? Like, that really, this is your excuse? Like, this is, like you said, you plagiarize in school, you get a big fat 0. Like, this is just a basic standard. But they're complaining about the fact that we even have standards. Is anyone bringing that up? I don't know if that's enough to snap people out of it. I don't know if that's enough to bring. What do you think? Is this actually is this playbook from them going to work this year, or is this just the levels that they're stooping to out of desperation, and maybe we've finally reached a point where no one's going to buy it?
Right. I mean, well, the key term there is buying it. Who's buying what from the Ivy League universities, and it's usually the elite institutions, the system, the parts of the regime that are taking these graduates from the elite universities anyway. That's why they exist. It's so the people who are already the elites can have a place to send their children, so they can once again be filtered into these elite circles, and then get their positions in DC and in crazy faculty positions that there's been a crazy overinflation of that throughout the decades, or New York. So when it comes to who's buying it, the people literally buying, employing graduates from these places probably won't care, because it's the same wokest leftist type people, as long as they can do a job well. I mean, but like you're hiring, you see, okay, this person's from Harvard, I'm going to take a good look at this one because that's a hard university to get into.
Unless you're the people saying, I'm not going to hire anyone from Harvard anymore,
right,
which actually happens.
Right, which is a big change going on.
That is a big change happening.
Yeah, because and people wake up to this more and more of like, did you get into Harvard because, and this actually harms minorities more. People who have benefited from the affirmative action system that the Supreme Court said, okay, stop. But the Supreme Court said stop, but Harvard still wants to do that. Plus, it's been going for a while now. So when the Supreme Court, or when there's a black student that goes through this university, and they've got their Harvard diploma, they're looking for jobs. Employers might think, okay, did you only get here because you're black or because you're a good worker? And that's harmful to them, and that's harmful to everybody involved, and that's why we do want our universities to exist on a basis of meritocracy. So the people who graduate, the people who got good grades, you can see that they did that because of the hard work they did, regardless of any identity boxes that they checked along the way. That's not what should matter. So yeah, I do think that there is less credibility for these super elite institutions, and the degrees that they come with going forward, which is why I'm glad I went to Hillsdale, because I think that as their credibility goes down, the credibility of a Hillsdale degree goes up.
Right. Yes. As the world around it, I think that's actually become a big part of what we're looking at across the board now, that people are seeing that shift and understanding it. I'm trying to catch up here. We've actually, everyone popped this. We're popping today. YouTube and Rumble both are trying to keep me busy here, catching up with comments. But I see a couple of things coming in, which I was going to talk about. First of all, it's really interesting when you start diving into it. There is actually a political solution to a lot of this, because when you go back to it, you talk about this doesn't exist inside the world of like business. This is the bottom line, and we're selling a product and getting. There's so much that goes into this that are grants and endowments and donations, but then there's the federal side of it. There's so much federal money that flows to these institutions that, and I'm going to go full Mike Rowe here for a minute, the Dirty Jobs guy, which if you haven't followed along with him, he is a huge advocate speaking out against college, against higher education in America, because of what we've done to it, essentially bloating it with a bunch of people unnecessarily going to college just for the experience of it, therefore flooding the market with more degrees, making yours worth less. And in the meantime, we've given out federally guaranteed student loans and federal grants to these schools, so that now there's money in it no matter what. So now your degree is actually worth less because everyone else has one too. More people have one. And we can charge more for it than ever before because you can just always get a federally guaranteed student loan for it.
Right.
There's no problem. And we can just also jack up our budget with hires on the administration side because we have grants coming in from the government. So all of a sudden, this thing costs more than ever before and it's worth less than ever before at the same time. And what we've done is created this self-sustaining monster that does not have to provide a good product, and yet it keeps getting funded. Well, there's a couple of big, federal student loans and federal grants to colleges. If someone in the executive branch gets in there and starts putting their thumb down on the Department of Education, a lot of that changes pretty quickly. Right. That could very rapidly be done. I'm very sad that Trump didn't do it in his first term. I hope if he gets a second term, we do it, that we actually start really leaning into these people, because that could make a huge difference across the board. And here's some of the stuff I wanted to pull up, because I see someone talking about Harvard former president, the former Harvard headmaster, Claudine Gay. She though not the president of Harvard, still is going to maintain a tenured professorship and her salary, which is almost $900,000 a year.
Wow.
I don't know about you, but the congressional performance I saw on December 5th was not worth almost $1 million a year.
I should have plagiarized more.
I was about to say,
Yeah.
I should have plagiarized more. Maybe I should be the president of Harvard. It's quite possible. But she is going to be protected. The system will take care of her. They will keep getting her nearly $900,000 salary. She's just being removed from this section, showing really, that shows too that this isn't she's not some budding academic. She's not some promising pioneering person. She was a cog that fits there, and we can take you out when you're controversial, and don't worry, we'll still pay you, and we're going to find someone else. But here's some interesting things. I saw this from the Federalist. They were reporting it, but it actually comes from the College Fix originally. At an average institution of higher education in America, there are more administrators than there are faculty. Now, this is academic administration. For those who aren't well versed in it, which you shouldn't be, it's not worth much, as we've just discussed. This is the branch of the university that basically the employees that are responsible for the maintenance of the institution itself. That's separate from the faculty and academics, which are actually the personnel that teach and go into certain subjects. So not only on average are there more administrators than there are faculty, but there are in a lot of places 2,600 more administrators than undergraduate students at Harvard.
Wow.
They have 2,600 more administrators, not even faculty, just the people who are responsible for keeping the institution running. 2,600 more of them than there are undergraduate students at Harvard.
That is insane.
This is, and I mean, this is really the reality is these people are not here for teaching students. Those folks are real far liberal, very leftist. These are the people who are bureaucrats completely removed from the teaching faculty side of the equation. Their whole job is to perpetuate the college. This is where so much of the bureaucratic fueling of leftist orthodoxy comes from, is from this side.
Right.
And it's also incredibly unnecessary. I saw, where was this other number? This was a study that showed university bureaucrats are more left-wing than professors, with leftist staff outnumbering conservative administrators 12-1. So it's not just the faculty. We talk about your college professor being liberal. There aren't conservative professors. There's a very interesting distinction to make here. It's not even just the faculty, which are liberal and leftist. It's the administrators, which is where we're talking about the Liz McGills of the world, the Claudine Gays of the world. These are the folks who just perpetuate the institution. I mean, if you want to dry it up, you start cutting off the money for this and demanding that institutions not just fire some of these people, but eliminate wholesale some of these roles and jobs that shouldn't even be there, that don't need to be there. Not only could they potentially shut down a bunch of federal money and not need it anymore, but you would also start to cut off some of the rot that is making itself more leftist every single day and possible. I mean, I'm not saying this is the fix for higher education. It's obviously not, but this is a very interesting thing when you dive into it. It's not just that colleges are liberal, your college professor is a leftist, a communist. There's a distinction to be made here, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of the free-flowing money that can be cut off from the political side.
And it's nice because this is something that actually can be fixed. There's lots of stuff out there that's like emergent phenomena where you really have to dig to find the cause. And it's like, fixing that requires changing human nature or something. No, these are institutions that exist in our society. There are a finite amount of them, and they have rules, and those rules are governed by people both in the federal and state governments. Those rules can be changed. Money can be stopped. These tax exemptions can be configured in ways that will limit the power. It's important that both at the state and the federal level that this administrative bloat needs to be cut off, that we need to start shearing the sheep, essentially. And the states do have a lot of power to do this too.
Yeah, that's there.
State universities can have very direct control over the universities within their states. And the legislators there could start cutting off the administrative bloat in there as well. So I think it'd be good to do this, and it's possible, and it would make tuition cheaper across the board.
It really is time, and this is where I encourage. This is where all of us can encourage people who are getting into office, who we are voting for this year, whether they're an incumbent or they're coming in for the first time. I mean, this is what so much of this came from a lot of the federal Department of Education, some of the heavy-handed stuff to begin with. There's a carrot and a stick. We offer you money, but then we hit you with the standard stick if you have to do these things because you take our money now. It's time to turn the carrot and stick back around. Maybe it's time for the federal legislators and the federal executives to start beating away the money and say, fine, here's the carrot and the stick. Don't take the carrot, or here's the stick. The state agencies, to your point, we actually get to say, okay, it's time. We're going to cut you off. Like here's the stick end of it. No more money from us. You have to survive on your own. That's actually going to make a very interesting difference just in the world of competition itself, but also it's going to lessen the influence, because now all of a sudden everyone can't go there. We don't just have all this money. We can't just, that alone could make some major cuts into the influence of these self-sustaining echo chamber universities. And I'm trying to think, there's all the nasty words that I'm trying to think of, and we just need to whittle them down because we all know that they're bad. These universities are horrible places.
They're gay. Let's just go with that. It's topical.
It is topical. It's topical. Let's bring it. Well, never mind. I could just go into a bunch of things, but we don't want to get axed from YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, let me pop over here real quick. Are you college football man?
No.
Okay, me neither. We're going to skip that question. Sorry, Bob. No, I'm kidding. Someone says something about the thoughts on a college football team playing for national championship who got there by benefiting from violating the thou shalt not steal value. I'm literally Googling this because I don't pay attention to college football whatsoever, but I did hear that Michigan won the championship, the NCAA championship. Is it the NCAA championship? We're just going to call it the college football championship.
I didn't even hear that they won.
Michigan won.
Okay.
Michigan apparently are cheaters. I'm a baseball guy. So if you're telling me that Michigan is just like the Houston Astros, then that's how I feel about that. You can probably tell from my comments. I have very nasty feelings, but no, I don't know anything about the college football. I figured I'd move past that. We got a lot of talk going on though. I see over on YouTube, we have a lot of things talking about local school districts. Same thing. Administration is very top heavy, number and salary. Maintaining the narrative is more important than the truth. It's also more important than actually having a bottom line that makes sense. Michigan plays Washington on Monday. See, there you go. Well, then let's hope that Michigan loses if they're cheaters. I don't know if they are or not. I literally have to look these things up because I don't pay attention to college football. The NFL has killed football for everyone, and baseball's better anyway. I said it. We'll move on. I know you're not going to disagree with me, so I just ran with it. Yeah. Thank you for being completely disinterested. Let's move on now. But I see there's something here where we got Rumble. We're talking about DEI, which is part of what I wanted to get into here, because this is really just the self-fulfilling crumbling of DEI, which our good friend Phyllis commenting over here on Rumble says she calls it DIE, D-I-E, which is exactly what we're watching. And you'll notice that's what we named it. Instead of diversion, equity, and inclusion, I called it uniformity, exclusion, and injustice, which is pretty much everything that this results in.
Yeah.
And it is this DEI. These are all buzzwords: diversity, academic freedom. These are buzzwords that no one on the left cares about. This is the vernacular that they use that means absolutely nothing other than we're going to do what we want, and this gives us the ability to call other people hateful, repressive, and fear mongers or whatever it is.
Well, diversity just means no white people.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. It's diversity doesn't mean the natural progression of just allow everyone and see what happens on the basis of merit. Right. That has to do with now, well, we're going to pick and choose winners and losers, which literally means exclusion, which also pretty much means uniformity of ideas. And that's, what was it? Sean Davis, as we were flipping through articles for this, where'd it go? Sean Davis over at the Federalist said that universities want ideological diversity in the same way bacteria crave bleach. It's true.
Yeah.
And I mean, that explains that the 12-1, when you allow academic, when you allow the academic or administration employees to run amok, of course the faculty is going to reflect the ideological agenda, and then of course we're going to weed out students and create only one populace, and then of course we're going to have problems like we did with the Hamas-Israel conflict, and then we're going to get dragged in front of Congress because it has become so extreme in this one it's just it has literally fulfilled the prophecy to show exactly the opposite of every word that you're using.
Right.
And this is the leftist agenda the whole way through. Let me see here. Because I had, let me see. AP research. What else did you want to hit? Because I really think, and again, to kind of circle back, this is the baseball and hockey are where it's at. I agree with this. Forza Jersey, you're there. I can get on board with the hockey thing. I'll go with our Canadian brethren on that one.
I'm a Texan by blood, so football, even though I'm generally disinterested, football is
field hockey is the only thing you guys could even do.
There's like indoor hockey,
But aren't you afraid of ice? Isn't it like a natural fear of Texans to be afraid of ice? We adopt pollen as our own.
It's not ice. It's snow.
It's snow.
Yeah, snow is
no. There's a natural. Yeah, you're right. There's a natural panic with snow. I remember a few years ago, the whole grid went down from flurries.
Anyways, JD Vance published an essay on X, which used to just be a tweet on Twitter, but now it can be long. That was really good. It was kind of his thoughts about. And this will be in the notes. Another reason why you should go to phyllisschlafly.com and type in your email so you can get the great notes. He published this essay, essentially his analysis of what this whole, departure of President Gay means. But he's pointing out, this is not just an isolated incident. She is just another one of these mediocre people that hasn't really contributed anything to the academic world, that got the most prestigious academic role in the world purely because she checked boxes. And his point is essentially that that's everybody. That's how all these elite institutions work, all these elite universities. People check boxes and get through them and manipulate the system and play the identity card. And then they get the best degrees, the degrees that have historically been the most prestigious. And then they get into the institutions that make the rules and enforce the rules and control people. And he has this little, you should go through and read the whole thing. It's really good. But he has this little bit at the end. The real story of Harvard is not Claudine Gay's firing, but this. You are ruled by thousands of people who are just as mediocre. Their power relies on tax advantages from the federal government, a DEI bureaucracy backed by Biden's Department of Justice, and the implicit consent of millions of Americans. I say we withdraw that consent and let the favors that come along, and all the favors that come along with it, which is, I think, a really good point. These people, we're not ruled by experts. We're ruled by midwits, essentially. We're ruled by, people incredibly lacking in expertise. That I don't even know if they know how to read.
Well, they obviously don't, because they just copy and paste.
Yeah.
So I think, sorry, I was waiting for a copy and paste joke somewhere. I knew it had to be in there. If only they'd done phonics as a kid. Actually, these folks don't have the excuse. They did learn with phonics, I'm pretty sure. But beside the point, there's a lot of good conversation going on. As I head to my last point here that I wanted to make before we move on to the end of the program today, there's some good stuff, especially over on Rumble. There's a lot of stuff talking. Multiculturalism is coming in, talking about this is what happens. I mean, this is the result of the left's agenda is what we're watching. And here's what I want to say. I think, like I asked the question at the beginning, we kind of went to the end of a discussion and then came back into the middle of the details of what's going on. But whether people are listening or not, I think that here's what I think for 2024. I think that this starting the year in 2024 shows us a very powerful opportunity to speak to people who don't normally listen to right-wing style politics, because by its very nature, and this is what I'm seeing going down through YouTube. I mean, Leah on YouTube says it is racist to think that only certain colors of people can't think or create on their own and have to plagiarize, et cetera, and so on. There is this inherent insult in the left's move toward affirmative action, toward DEI policies, because while they claim, the standard line, we're giving a leg up to these people who've been disadvantaged for so long. When you actually drill them down on it and ask a true, honest to goodness liberal, let alone a leftist, about the line of thinking here, but why do you think, and it just ends up being, excuse me, are you saying that insert the color, black people, brown people, women, whatever it is, are you saying that this kind of person is too stupid to do it on their own and they actually have to have help? And how dare we?
That's what they were saying.
That's exactly what they're saying. And
when affirmative action was overturned, they were literally saying
that's where I'm going to. I think that there's a real opportunity, because that, I think, is really where we started to see some movement, when a lot of like the block of black voters in America started to shift a little bit toward Trump, because all of a sudden we had a Republican president putting forward reforms, prison system reforms, and justice system reforms, which has typically been a hallmark of the left, of Democrats, but it's all of a sudden it was Republican because it's something that made sense and was good. And then you start to see these different things. And then when you actually get into the nitty gritty of the argument over affirmative action, which we just did, you actually start to see the ugly face of what it really is. It is racism, because they think that you as a person are too stupid to make it on your own. So we have to help you. And this is, I think, a golden opportunity to make sure that that argument is understood, whether it's pushing and prodding people in front of congressional hearings or in front of the Supreme Court to say it like we did, or whether it's us just laying it out there. There's a lot of people out there, I think, who would kind of go for the more bleeding heart, left. Yeah, this is a good thing to help people who've been disadvantaged. But is that really what they're doing? We have this opportunity to ask that question, to go along. But doesn't that mean that we don't think they can run that? Yeah. And the greatest place I can send you, this is the resource that'll be there, but you can go look it up on your own. If you're not going to sign up for our email list, which you shouldn't do that, you should sign up. Go and get Clarence Thomas's concurring opinion from the affirmative action decision out of the Supreme Court. It is magnificent. Absolutely. I mean, this has been for him such a personal thing for a long time, fighting this very insulting affirmative action as a successful American story, the successful American story he has, which there's a book recommendation. If you haven't read, what's the name of his autobiography? My Grandfather's Son. I think that's the name of it. No idea. Go read it. Clarence Thomas, My Grandfather's Son. Great book. Go and get and look at his concurring opinion when the affirmative action case came through the Supreme Court and was subsequently overturned in this specific case. He has all of the pieces that I believe can get that middle wishy-washy America to stop and say, wait a minute, you don't actually care for these downtrodden people. You're the one trotting them down. You're making them dependent upon you, not trying to lift them out of their circumstances and give them the freedom and independence to have the American success story or whatever it is that you want to call it. This, I think, is a really interesting opportunity. One, I hope, of many that we have through 2024 to talk about this, because there is no more clear division, or example of a clear division between the left and the right than this. Right. The meritocracy of leave people alone, let them, stand up for themselves, and no, we will pick winners and losers. Right. This is one of the huge divisions of the left and the right. This authoritarianism versus freedom argument that we're having, which is the same thing that comes down to, the establishment, the deep state, authoritarianism, statism versus freedom. It's that same kind of argument, but it's playing out in something that is very incredibly personal. And it's not easy to just walk around and say, you're calling me racist, but you're really the racist one. You have to have something that actually connects with people. And this could be it. This really might be it. And I think that Clarence Thomas gives us in that concurring opinion. What was that? That was 2023, right?
Yeah, that was last year.
That was last year, 2023 in June. Go grab that, because their dismantling of affirmative action gave us, I think, a blueprint to be able to message to and get a lot of Americans to not just agree with us, but to see the massive gaping holes in what the left is saying and has gotten away with for so long. And if we can turn public opinion against them in this area, that could be a huge, huge victory. There may actually be a will and a mandate for a Republican president to come in, for Donald Trump to come in and just take a sledgehammer to federal funding for student loans and grants. And that would take a sledgehammer to the awful leftist higher education system in America.
Yeah, definitely.
I think this is a real opportunity to get people's
doable.
Attention.
It's doable. It's something that can be done. It's not a political pipe dream, not by any means.
Right. There is an actual path forward that can make this happen. And I think this is an actual issue that people can and will listen to and understand and say, oh, yeah, I don't like what those people are saying. Exactly. Right. They've become so convoluted. It is often hard to get to the heart of an issue. But this one, man, there's just not a good argument for it, because you start trying to argue for affirmative action, and before long you end up saying, well, black people are stupid, so we have to help them. That's what it ends up sounding like if you argue for affirmative action. There's no good argument for it. If someone effectively prods into it. We have a real opportunity, I think, for people to see the light on an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And all it takes is one chink in the right place in the armor.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden other things start to fall down as well, because the logic falls apart. And this is one where because as right wingers, we're really good at logic and numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Logic and numbers for us can actually connect with the emotional argument, something we don't always make very well, and let people in on the aha moment.
Yeah.
That they're lying to me and using me. And I'm not on board with that.
Right.
This could be one. I mean, thank you, Claudine Gay, for giving us maybe our first golden opportunity of 2024 to really put the left out of business in a certain area, or at least start down that path.
Start turning up the heat.
Turn up the heat. Turn up the heat. No cap, as the kiddos say.
Yeah.
Well, your generation. That's a Zoomer thing.
Yeah,
right?
no cap.
No cap. Yeah.
No kizzy.
No kizzy. Don't know that one, but it's okay. I'm still
lit.
Same
thing.
I'm still lit. Cool beans, everybody.
Yeah. So DEI is going to DIE, God willing. Maybe that should have been the title, but I like yours too.
Uniformity, exclusion, and injustice.
Anyways, yeah, it's on the way down. Definitely go to the website, sign up for the email list, shoot us an email, leave us a comment, whatever you want to do. If you want to hear us cover some kind of topic, I mean, there was the big Epstein thing yesterday. We didn't even get into that.
Right.
Definitely something to look into. So if you want us to cover that or something else next week, definitely shoot us emails, leave comments, like, subscribe, so we know that you're actually somebody that's going to come back and watch. And we would love to hear out whatever you want us to talk about. You know, maybe hit some of these topics. Because we do this for you. Like I try to say every week, we do this for you. You are what makes this interesting, because we are here to have a conversation with you. This isn't just us telling you, some great truth that we figured out. No, we're all figuring it out too. And this is an ongoing conversation.
Right.
So thank you for joining us again this week. And we're so glad to be back with you live for the first time in 3 weeks.
Live for killing the movie magic, man.
Last week we said,
but people. We did. We admitted it. Never mind.
Last week we said we're early, okay. So if this situation totally changes, sorry.
And that was on, man, because we talked about the ballot thing with Trump, and then thankfully Friday, Maine decides to go up that. Well, that's it. Thank you again. I agree with everything he said. Go and do it. Go and share, like, and share, and subscribe. And please send us, because we are walking into the election year. There's a lot of stuff we want to talk about, and I already see a good one here. Someone's immediately hopped from affirmative action in universities. That means we need to do this with visas and immigration. I like that. You come back to the chat, Forza Jersey. Come on back to the chat. Shoot us an email, info@phyllisschlafly.com. I actually want to hear that idea so that we can maybe flesh that out, because that could be a really interesting thing to talk about. Thank you all. And the interesting things from the Epstein drop. Autumn wants to hear that. So we've got some good stuff, because that's it's not next episode yet, so I'm going to stop myself.
Yeah.
Because I have a lot of ideas and thoughts. We got some good stuff. Shoot us an email, like, share, and subscribe. And like he said, go to phyllisschlafly.com and sign up. Thanks for spending your lunch hour with us, everyone. We'll see you next Thursday. If it's noon and Thursday, it will be a live caucus time. And we may even just have this middle section filled with a picture of the two of us so we can broadcast on Instagram. You can still hear us. It's just a picture. We'll figure it out.
We'll do something.
All right. Thanks.